What's going on, guys? Danny from Skateboard Strength, and today we're doing a deep dive on Achilles tendinopathy or Achilles tendon pain for skaters.
Front salad, back salad, front blunt.
Cases of Achilles tendinopathy are rampant in the skate community, largely due to its over-demanding workload each and every time we go out to skate. To understand why, we must first understand its basic function and role. The Achilles tendon connects the two portions of our calf muscles to the heel bone at the bottom. It therefore aids in the movements of dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, two movements that are heavily relied on by skaters. To stop there, however, would be a huge oversight in the Achilles tendon's unique role in absorbing and producing forces. Never seen any of that in skating. The Achilles tendon provides an important mechanism, the store and release of elastic energy. When it is put into a stretch position, it stores elastic energy, almost like a spring. This then allows that elastic energy to be used in the recoil. This important function can be huge in not only helping things like power and pop, but also in the absorption of taking impact and runouts. When a tendon is strong and healthy, it can take huge amounts of forces, diverting attention away from the surrounding joints and improving economy of function. When you now consider that most things we're ever going to do on a board rely on this very important function, you can begin to see why the Achilles tendon becomes so overly strained. What this does not explain, however, is what I'm sure you're all asking yourself now, which is, why, if I skate all the time, did this pain suddenly come about? Achilles tendinopathy is known as an overuse injury. To understand these, we must first understand our stimulation and recovery process. This graph represents the recovery process the body undertakes each and every time you throw a stimulus at it. For the sake of this video, let's say it's skating. We throw a bout of skating at it, it recovers, it adapts, and in the best case scenario, it gets stronger and more adept at handling these levels of skating. The issue arises when this recovery is not able to occur. We throw a stimulus at it, it fails to adapt and recover before we again go and throw another stimulus at it, leaving us in this zone here. It is here where overuse injuries occur. Behind every tendon-based injury is an instance where this process was not allowed to occur. More specifically, where we have a huge spike in volume of work that has not allowed the recovery process to take place. This is going to be unique to each individual skater, as everyone's tolerance levels are going to be different. Here are some examples of what these huge spikes in volumes could be. An older skater who's had significant time off, going back to skating multiple times a week. An intermediate skater working on switch tricks for hours, exposing their switch leg to high amounts of volume of popping that it hasn't experienced before. An advanced skater looking to really push hard by increasing their skating over a short period of time. For example, doubling their session times or going from 3 to 4 times a week skating to everyday skating. The catalyst to these Achilles issues can even be battling a trick for an extended period of time and not allowing the recovery process to take place before the next skate or next battle. It is important to note that we're not saying that these levels of skating are not achievable, but rather that they need to be achieved relative to your ability to be able to recover from them. Other noticeable reasons why these tendon pains come about include the warm-up effect. This is where once the tendon is warm, the skater is often able to perform at decent, sometimes normal function, allowing the skater to ignore the warning signs and potentially doing more damage, convincing themselves that it's okay. Bad function and lack of strength further up and down the chain. With the overdemand that skating places on the foot, calf, and ankle, these areas can often present quite tight. This tightness can affect efficient mechanics at the foot, calf, and ankle and put undue stress on the Achilles tendon. Before we look at a program, in order to heal your Achilles tendon injury, we must first arm you with the most important part of the puzzle in navigating tendon-based injuries, the pain chart. Tendon injuries are quite unique in that pain will likely be part of the process every step of the way. In fact, waiting for an absence of pain before you engage with a tendon-based program is not what's common practice or recommended here. This is why your ability to manage pain, as well as choose effective exercises and manage flare-ups, is going to rely heavily on your ability to understand this process. Using the pain chart, you will use it to rate your pain from 0 to 10. 10 being the most pain you've ever been in, and 1 being no pain at all. When choosing an exercise, you should aim to experience no more than a level 3 to 5 of pain on that pain scale. The true test, however, will come the following day. When you wake up in the morning, use the pain chart to assess the stimulus you have given it the day before. If you feel worse, you have potentially pushed it too far. This is where you can look at reducing sets, exercises, load, or even just session intensity in general. If, however, you feel better or the same, you're on the right track. You can either hold here for a couple of sessions more, or when you're ready, experiment with adding more sets and intensity, or simply moving on to the next stage. Again, each and every time you add a new stimulus, we're going to make the same assessments: how it's feeling when you do it, and how it pulls up the next morning. This also includes skating, but we'll leave that to lucky last. All right, so let's take a look at what your base level rehab program should look like. The first layer of your rehab program is going to be things that you can generally do each and every day. These will be categorized as pain relief. Here, we will look to foam roll the calves, the shins, whilst also providing relief with the mobility ball to the arches of our feet. It is highly recommended here that you leave stretching out, as it can actually cause irritation to the Achilles due to the compression caused by stretching it over the bony process of the heel. Finally, we look at ankle pumps as a means of restoring function at the foot and ankle in order to promote efficient mechanics. What's important to note is that the pain management exercises are in no way the solution to your tendon-based injury, but merely provide you a window of opportunity to go and do the exercises that will be. Tendon injuries require load, and in particular heavy load, in order to make a full recovery. Failure to do this will lead to this spinning of wheels of sorts, where the skater feels better but then gets acute pain once they return back to normal activities. This brings us to our training day. Your training day will begin every second day and will build at your own pace relative to your capability and pain levels. You'll perform all your pain management exercises to start before introducing only one layer per session relative to your capabilities and how you pulled up with your pain levels. Level 1 will see the introduction of isometrics. Choose only one of these that suits your level, performing 2 to 5 sets of 40-second hold. Level 2 sees us introduce a calf raise. What's important to note here is that we first begin at a shortened range of motion, going from 2 legs, 2 up, 1 down, and then further going on to a single. This process is then repeated only at an extended range of motion. Once we have gotten to the final stage, we simply continue to add load. Level 3, we introduce a bent knee calf raise. Here we have 2 variations in case of equipment issues. However, if possible, try and favor the seated bent knee calf raise. Level 4 sees the introduction of plyometric loading, and probably the closest indication that you are ready to go back to skate. Remember what we said about the store and release function of the Achilles tendon. This function needs to be restored in capability before making a return to skating, and the only exercises that have been shown to do that are plyometric loading. They also have the highest probability of causing a flare-up, so caution is advised and a management of intensity. Always look to underdo it rather than overdo it. Plyometric training is not cardio. Sweating or huffing and puffing is not a good indication of quality plyometric loading and can often be the opposite. Because of its high probability of causing a flare-up, we're going to introduce this plyo loading 4 layers at a time. First is the pogo. Second, we add a rotational component. We then move on to lateral split leaps. And finally, hops. Introduce 1 per session, bringing in the next one only once you've gotten feedback from the pain chart the following morning.
You can either complain or you can skate.
All right, so now we're going to cover the big elephant in the room. Can I continue to skate? Remember what we said about using the pain chart. It's going to be our biggest guide of whether that Achilles can tolerate or handle that style of loading. Skating is no different. Some skaters who are skating 2 to 3 hour sessions will find that simply cutting their session time down to 60 minutes is enough of a deload in volume and intensity of skating that the Achilles can now tolerate it and get them within that scale of where we want to be on that pain chart. Others, however, will find that no matter what they do and what they change and manipulate with their skating, they continue to pull up worse the next morning. If this is the case, then taking time off skating is highly recommended in order for this rehab program to take in effect and start healing the Achilles. Your roadmap back to skating will be your ability to be able to handle all of this program and the plyometrics relatively pain-free. It is worth noting that I've seen skaters turn what could have been a quick recovery into a 6 to 12 month plus ordeal because they didn't want to take some time off initially. This brings us to the final and closely related topic of the mental health side of tendon recovery. Tendons can be a wild ride. They get better, they get worse. You have flare-ups before making big leaps forward. As hard as it can be, try and remember that this is all part of the process and eliminate the mental toll it takes on you by viewing pain as simple feedback. It's not good or bad, it's simply feedback on what you need to adjust. A flare-up doesn't often mean that you've gone backwards or that you've delayed your return to skating, but rather that what you threw at it was simply a little bit too much, too soon. Whenever this happens, simply go back a step in your program, settle it down, and simply try again, making adjustments in intensity and volume until you get it right. You will often find that around the time of the biggest flare-ups or setbacks, the tendon will make the biggest jumps in recovery if you can eliminate the mental burden of it and make the right adjustments.